In the beginning, before the world as mortals know it took shape, the cosmos was ruled by ancient titans, colossal beings whose power shook the very fabric of existence. Among them was Kronar, the mighty titan of time and shadows, a ruler feared and revered by all. His will was absolute, his rule marked by paranoia and ruthlessness. Consumed by fear of losing his throne, Kronar devoured each of his children the moment they were born, unwilling to share his power with any potential rival. But his queen, Rhea, was a goddess of quiet strength and deep wisdom. Though she loved Kronar, she saw the darkness growing in his heart. One by one, her children were lost to Kronar's insatiable hunger, and with each loss, Rhea's sorrow deepened. Yet she refused to surrender hope, for the child growing within her was special, the sixth, destined to change the course of fate. As the day of Aurion's birth approached, Rhea devised a plan. She sought counsel from Gaia, the Earth Mother, and Uranus, the Sky Father, ancient deities who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless ages. Together, they forged a cunning scheme to protect the newborn from Kronar's wrath. When the time came, Rhea summoned all her strength and went into labor. She cried out with a ruse so convincing that Kronar, drawn by the cries, appeared just in time to snatch what he believed was his newborn son wrapped tightly in a swaddling cloth. Without hesitation, Kronar swallowed the bundle whole, but it was no child. Hidden within the folds was a heavy stone, enchanted by Gaia's magic to mimic life's warmth. Meanwhile, under the protective watch of Gaia, Aurion was born in secret on the lush Isle of Elaria. There, cradled by the gentle arms of nature, he was placed in a cradle woven from the softest clouds and hung high within the branches of the ancient oak, a symbol of strength and endurance. The air was thick with magic, the whisper of the wind carried promises of a destiny yet to unfold. Nurtured by Amalia, the celestial goat whose milk shimmered with divine essence, Aurion grew swiftly. Each day, he absorbed the radiant energy of Gaia's fertile earth and the soothing caress of the sky. Despite his tender age, there was a spark of power in him, a force that even the stars could feel. One tranquil afternoon, as golden sunlight filtered through the canopy, young Aurion played with Amalia. His tiny hands grasped one of her proud horns, tugging with innocent delight. To the surprise of all, the horn cracked and broke, yet from the broken tip flowed an endless bounty of fruits, fresh grains, and luscious vegetables, the first gift Aurion bestowed upon the world. It became known as the Horn of Plenty, a symbol of abundance and generosity. Yet, as Aurion's strength grew, so did his curiosity. He longed to understand the world beyond his sheltered sanctuary and the fate of his swallowed siblings. Often, his mother Rhea would visit in secret, her presence a balm to his inquisitive heart. One evening, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, Aurion asked the question that weighed on his soul: why must she leave so soon? Why was he hidden away from the world? With a heavy sigh, Rhea recounted the tale of Kronar's madness, how love turned to fear, and fear to tyranny. She spoke of the swallowed children, the cruel fate they met within their father's belly. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, she revealed Aurion's destiny, to rise against Kronar, to liberate the gods, and to bring balance to the cosmos. The fire of rebellion ignited within Aurion's eyes. He vowed to train, to grow, and to one day challenge the shadow that had cast its pall over his family and the universe. His journey from a hidden child to the sovereign of the skies was about to begin. With the guidance of Métis, the wise oceanic nymph, and Gaia herself, Aurion began to learn the arts of leadership, wisdom, and strength. He understood that true power was not born from fear or domination, but from trust, respect, and the courage to inspire others. Every lesson was a stepping stone on the path to greatness. As night cloaked the world, Aurion gazed toward the stars, a silent prayer escaping his lips. He was no longer just a child swaddled in clouds, he was the harbinger of change, the dawn of a new era. And though the road ahead was fraught with peril, the heavens whispered their blessing, echoing his name through the vastness of space. Aurion, the sky sovereign, was born. The soft whispers of dawn crept across the Isle of Elaria, casting delicate rays of light through the ancient oaks that sheltered young Aurion's hidden cradle. The world outside remained unaware that beneath the canopy of leaves, a destiny unlike any other was quietly taking root. Aurion was no ordinary child, he was the spark of rebellion, the hope of gods enslaved by Kronar's cruel grasp. As the first light bathed the sky in hues of rose and gold, a figure approached from the mist. Métis, the oceanic nymph and trusted guardian. Her eyes shimmered with wisdom born of centuries, and her voice carried the calm authority of the sea itself. Aurion, she whispered softly, kneeling beside the cradle, today marks the beginning of your journey beyond innocence. You will learn not only strength but the true nature of power. Aurion blinked awake, his cerulean eyes reflecting both curiosity and determination. The gentle warmth of Amalia, the celestial goat, nestled close by, providing comfort and nourishment. But the child's heart beat not for rest, it yearned for knowledge. Métis extended her hand, and in a swirl of sparkling water, a scroll appeared, glowing with ancient runes. This scroll holds the teachings of the Titans, lessons of strategy, courage, and compassion. But beware, knowledge alone cannot save you from the shadows that lurk. The days that followed were filled with rigorous training. Métis guided Aurion through exercises of mind and body, teaching him to control the winds that danced around the isle, to summon clouds to shield and conceal, and to harness the power of the sky itself. Each trial was a test, sometimes harsh, sometimes gentle, designed to awaken the latent god within. Yet, the greatest challenge was not physical. To lead, Métis explained one twilight, you must understand those who follow and those who oppose. You must see beyond the surface, beyond fear and fury. As Aurion trained, he was not alone. Gaia herself would visit, her presence earthbound but no less powerful. With hands like fertile soil, Gaia taught Aurion the language of the land, how rivers whispered secrets, how trees bore witness to time's passage, and how balance must be maintained between sky and earth. One evening, as the stars blinked awake, Aurion sat with Gaia beneath the sprawling branches of the world oak. Why does Kronar rule with fear? Aurion asked quietly. Gaia's eyes softened, reflecting the ancient cycles of birth and decay. Fear is the weapon of the insecure, child. Kronar's heart was poisoned by the dread of losing control. But strength born from fear is brittle, it cracks under pressure. Your strength must be like the roots of this oak, deep, steady, and nurturing. but beyond the sanctuary of Elaria, shadows stirred. Far away, in the obsidian halls of Kronar's fortress, the Titan Lord paced restlessly. His belly churned with unease. The stone he had swallowed did not soothe his fears as he had hoped. He sensed a stirring, a ripple in the fabric of fate that spoke of rebellion. His time will come, Kronar muttered darkly, but I will not fall to a child. I will break his spirit before it rises. Kronar summoned his most loyal agents, the Shade-born, dark spirits woven from shadow and malice. Cloaked in swirling mists, these phantoms slipped silently through the realms, searching for the hidden child who threatened to unravel Kronar's reign. Meanwhile, on Elaria, Aurion's nights were restless. He dreamed of swirling storms and distant battles, of voices calling his name through howling winds. Each dream left him with a growing sense of urgency. One night, Métis found him gazing at the stars. The shadows draw near, she warned. Your training must quicken. The balance of the world depends on you. Aurion clenched his fists, determination burning brighter than ever. I will not let Kronar's darkness consume all. I will rise for my siblings, for the gods, and for the world. As Aurion's power grew, so too did his understanding of leadership. He began to gather allies, spirits of the wind, creatures of the forests, and even mortal souls who whispered legends of the coming Sky Sovereign. Yet, not all welcomed the change. Whispers of doubt echoed in hidden corners. Some gods feared Kronar's wrath, others doubted Aurion's strength. Trust, Métis reminded him, was a fragile gift. Earning it required patience and unwavering integrity. And so, under the watchful eyes of Gaia and Métis, Aurion's journey accelerated from the quiet innocence of childhood to the fierce dawn of rebellion. The wind sang his name, the clouds formed his banner, the stars aligned for the coming storm. The battle for the heavens was on the horizon. The wind howled like a restless spirit over the jagged cliffs of Elaria as Aurion stood tall at the edge of the island, his gaze piercing the distant horizon. Dark clouds gathered in the west, rolling like the rumble of an approaching storm. Yet within Aurion's heart, a fire burned brighter than any tempest, the fire of hope, defiance, and unyielding courage. Since the night Métis warned him of Kronar's Shade-born agents searching for him, Aurion's world had shifted irrevocably. The sanctuary of his hidden home no longer felt safe. The once peaceful isle now hummed with the tension of impending war. Determined to protect those he loved and fulfill his destiny, Aurion began the most perilous phase of his journey, to forge alliances that could withstand the fury of Kronar's wrath. His first stop was the Grove of Whispering Oaks, an ancient forest where the spirits of the earth had dwelled since time immemorial. Here lived Illyra, the enigmatic keeper of the woods, a goddess whose connection to nature was so profound that even the trees bent their branches in her presence. Aurion approached the grove cautiously, aware that trust was not given lightly. Illyra emerged from the shadows, her emerald eyes glowing softly beneath a crown woven from vines and blossoms. Her voice was like the rustling leaves, both soothing and commanding. You seek to challenge Kronar, child of the sky, she said. But the earth remembers the pain he has inflicted. Why should we stand with you? Aurion bowed respectfully. Because the tyranny of Kronar poisons all realms, sky, earth, and sea. If he remains unchallenged, none will be free. I ask for your strength, your wisdom, and your fierce love for this world. Illyra studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. I will bring the voices of the forest to your cause. But know this, our allegiance comes with a price. The battle will be long, and sacrifice inevitable. With Illyra's blessing, Aurion's forces began to grow. From the depths of the oceans came Sirena, the sea enchantress, whose songs could calm the wildest waves or summon storms that shattered cliffs. Her trident shimmered like liquid sapphire, and her hair flowed like the tides themselves. Sirena's realm had long suffered under Kronar's neglect, the seas darkened by his shadow. Hearing Aurion's call, she pledged her power, promising to guard the waterways and flood the battlefield with the fury of the oceans. Together with Métis, Gaia, Illyra, and Sirena, Aurion formed a council of gods and spirits, a united front against Kronar's tyranny. But Kronar was not idle. In the obsidian fortress where shadows clung like living things, Kronar summoned his lieutenants, the Shade-born commanders, Nazar and Morvos, masters of stealth and deception. Cloaked in darkness, they obeyed Kronar's commands without question, their eyes gleaming with cruel anticipation. You will find the child, Kronar hissed, voice like grinding stone. Capture him, extinguish the flame of rebellion before it ignites. Nazar and Morvos melted into the void, their forms dissolving into tendrils of shadow that slipped through realms and crept toward Elaria. Meanwhile, Aurion's training intensified. Under Métis's watchful eye, he honed his command over the skies, calling lightning to dance at his fingertips, shaping clouds into shields, and learning to ride the wind like a falcon. But Métis warned, power alone will not win this war. You must learn to inspire hope in others, to build a legacy that outlasts the fiercest storm. In quiet moments, Aurion sought counsel from his mother, Rhea, whose strength never waned despite the scars of the past. Remember, my son, Rhea said one evening as the twin moons rose, the battle is not just against Kronar's might, but against fear that can divide even the strongest allies. Trust in your heart and in those who stand beside you. Aurion nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle deep within. As days turned to weeks, whispers of rebellion spread beyond Elaria's shores. Mortals told tales of a rising god who would challenge the darkness. Hope blossomed in places long forgotten. But with hope came danger. One night, as Aurion rested in the moonlit grove, a chilling presence slithered through the trees. Nazar, the shadow hunter, sent to strike fear into the heart of the rebellion. Nazar moved silently, his form barely a shadow against the shadows, creeping closer to Aurion's resting place. Just as his cold fingers brushed the air near Aurion's face, a sudden gust of wind surged, knocking the shadow spirit backward. Aurion's eyes snapped open, lightning crackling around his fingertips. You will find no prey here, Shade-born. With a roar that echoed through the night, Aurion summoned a tempest. Lightning bolts forked through the sky, thunder shaking the very ground. Nazar vanished into the darkness, wounded but unbroken. The battle lines were drawn. Aurion understood now that his path would be fraught with peril and sacrifice. But surrounded by allies who shared his vision, and armed with the lessons of the earth, sea, and sky, he was ready to face whatever darkness Kronar unleashed. The time had come to rise. To challenge the Titan King and reclaim the cosmos. Aurion, the Sky Sovereign, was no longer hidden. He was the beacon of a new dawn. The fires of rebellion began to flicker like a distant star in the vast expanse of the cosmos, growing steadily brighter as Aurion's influence spread beyond the shores of Elaria. Yet, the path ahead was fraught with unseen dangers, ancient grudges, and the fragile threads of trust. Aurion stood atop a jagged cliff overlooking the tumultuous sea, his eyes reflecting the restless waves beneath. Beside him, Cyrena, the sea enchantress, raised her trident and summoned a spiraling whirlpool that danced with azure flames, an ethereal manifestation of the sea's wrath. "The tides are turning, Aurion," Cyrena said softly, her voice like the melody of crashing waves. "But Kronar's reach extends even into the deepest trenches. We must be vigilant." Aurion nodded, his thoughts heavy with the weight of command. "Our allies grow, but so does our enemies' fury. We must unite the scattered gods and spirits before Kronar's shadow consumes them all." To strengthen their cause, Aurion and his council sought out the elusive Solaris, the keeper of the eternal flame, a god whose very presence could ignite courage or burn away deceit. Solaris dwelled in the heart of the Emberlands, a realm of molten rivers and smoldering skies, where flames danced to the rhythm of ancient songs. The journey to the Emberlands was perilous. Aurion and his closest companions braved searing heat, jagged obsidian cliffs, and creatures born of fire and ash. Upon arrival, Solaris greeted them with eyes that flickered like living embers and a smile that held both warmth and warning. "You come seeking fire," Solaris intoned, voice resonant like a crackling blaze. "But fire is a double-edged sword, it can forge or destroy. What will you do with its power?" Aurion stepped forward, his voice steady. "I seek to light the way to freedom, to burn away tyranny and kindle hope in the hearts of all. The flames I wield will not consume the innocent but protect the just." Solaris studied him, then extended a hand engulfed in gentle flames. "So be it. I pledge the eternal flame to your cause. But remember, Aurion, the brightest fires cast the darkest shadows." With Solaris's blessing, Aurion's powers grew, his lightning infused with the fierce passion of fire. Yet with great power came great responsibility and great loss. News arrived that Nazar and Morvos, undeterred by their earlier defeat, had struck a devastating blow. The sacred grove of Whispering Oaks had been desecrated, its ancient trees withered and its spirits scattered. Illyra, grievously wounded in the attack, was now hidden in the depths of the forest, fighting to heal and gather strength. Aurion's heart clenched with sorrow and rage. "They will pay for this," he vowed. "But we cannot fall into despair. The rebellion depends on hope, and hope must never die." In the shadows of Kronar's fortress, the Titan King watched the rebellion's growth with a scowl etched deep into his obsidian visage. His power was vast, but the uprising threatened his very existence. "You grow bold, child," Kronar thundered, eyes blazing with fury. "But your flames will be snuffed out before they can ignite a revolution." To crush the rebellion, Kronar unleashed his most feared creation Vihalgor, the Titan of Desolation. A behemoth forged from the darkest storms and ancient ruin, Vihalgor marched with footsteps that shattered mountains and a roar that silenced the skies. Aurion and his allies knew that the final battle was drawing near. Under the silver glow of a blood moon, the council gathered, their faces set with determination and the unspoken knowledge that sacrifice was imminent. Together, Aurion declared, "We are more than gods and spirits. We are the hope of the cosmos, the dawn after the longest night." As lightning crackled around him and flames danced in his palms, Aurion felt the bond of his allies, the strength of the earth beneath, the vastness of the seas beside him, and the endless sky above. The war for the heavens was no longer a distant tale. It was here. It was now. Aurion, the Sky Sovereign, was ready to lead the charge. The air was thick with anticipation as Aurion and his allies gathered within the hidden sanctum of Elaria. The once peaceful isle now hummed with the pulse of war preparations, its forests echoing with whispered prayers and the clang of forging weapons. The wounds inflicted upon the grove of whispering oaks weighed heavily on every heart, a stark reminder of the stakes they faced. Ilara, the keeper of the woods, though weakened, stood resolute beside Aurion. Her emerald eyes, though tired, burned with a fierce determination. This attack was only the beginning, she warned. Kronar's darkness will not relent until all light is extinguished. Aurion's gaze hardened. Then we must be the light that never fades. In the days that followed, the council worked tirelessly. Métis led the training of new recruits, teaching them to wield the elemental forces with precision and compassion. Gaia called upon the earth itself, summoning roots and vines to shield their sanctuary and entangle any who dared approach uninvited. Sirena patrolled the coastal waters, her siren song rallying the spirits of the sea to their cause, while Solaris kept the eternal flame burning bright, a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. Yet amidst this flurry of activity, a new challenge emerged, one not from the enemy, but from within. Trust, fragile and elusive, became the crucible upon which the rebellion's fate would be forged. Among the newly gathered was Thelos, a god of storms and tempests, whose power rivaled even Aurion's. Though his allegiance was pledged, whispers of doubt stirred in the council chambers. Thelos's fierce temper and unpredictable nature sowed unease, especially in Ilara, who valued harmony above all. One evening, beneath a sky swirling with restless clouds, Aurion summoned Thelos to the summit of the World Oak. "We stand on the precipice of war," Aurion began, "and our strength lies not only in power but in unity. Will you stand with us, not just in battle, but in trust?" Thelos's eyes flashed like lightning. "I fight for freedom, but I answer to no one." Aurion met his gaze steadily. "Freedom without loyalty is chaos. If we fracture, Kronar will consume us all." For a tense moment, silence held sway. Then Thelos's fierce expression softened, and he nodded. "I will try." The trial of trust was only beginning. Meanwhile, far from the isle, Kronar grew restless. His fortress pulsed with dark energy, shadows writhing like serpents. The arrival of Vihalgor had brought destruction, but the rebellion's flames still burned stubbornly. "Vihalgor," Kronar commanded, "the child who calls himself Aurion grows stronger. Crush his allies, and the flame dies." The Titan of Desolation obeyed with merciless fury, laying waste to villages and sacred sites alike. The earth trembled beneath his march, skies blackened with ash. Back in Elaria, news of Vihalgor's rampage spread like wildfire. The rebellion's morale wavered, but Aurion refused despair. "We must strike before Vihalgor returns," he declared. "Gather our forces, it is time to take the fight to Kronar's doorstep." A council of war was called. Allies from every realm convened, spirits of wind, sea, earth, and fire, joined by mortal heroes inspired by legends of the Sky Sovereign. The march to Kronar's fortress was long and perilous. The land grew darker, the air heavier with malevolence. Shades and spirits loyal to Kronar haunted their path, testing their resolve at every turn. Aurion's leadership was put to the test not only in battle strategy but in keeping the diverse coalition united. Moments of discord arose, old rivalries flared, fears whispered in the shadows. But through it all, Aurion's vision held firm, a steady beacon guiding them onward. As they approached the obsidian gates of Kronar's fortress, the ground cracked open, and from the depths emerged the Shade-born commanders, Nazar and Morvos, ready to defend their master's domain. The final battle was at hand. Lightning collided with shadow, flames roared against darkness, and the clash of gods shook the heavens. Aurion led the charge, his heart blazing with purpose. The fate of the cosmos depended on this moment. The colossal obsidian gates of Kronar's fortress loomed before Aurion and his assembled forces, dark as the void between stars and pulsing with an ominous energy. The air was heavy with the scent of smoke and despair, and shadows slithered like serpents across the jagged stone walls. The Alliance, a tapestry woven from gods, spirits, and mortals, stood united in grim determination. Every warrior bore the weight of destiny, every heart beat in rhythm with the thunder that rolled overhead. Aurion stepped forward, his eyes alight with the storm's fury and the promise of justice. "This is our moment," he proclaimed, his voice echoing across the gathered army. "For freedom. For the fallen. For the future." With a thunderous roar, the battle commenced. Vihalgor, the Titan of Desolation, descended from the ramparts, his massive form shrouded in tempestuous clouds and crackling lightning. Each step shook the earth, each breath ignited the air with scorching heat. Beside Aurion, the Lows unleashed his tempestuous wrath, clashing storm against storm in a symphony of lightning and thunder. The heavens themselves seemed to shudder beneath their fury. Nazar and Morvos darted through the chaos, their shadowy blades striking with lethal precision, sowing confusion among the rebels. But Métis's guidance and the unity of the allied forces blunted their assaults, turning darkness back upon itself. As the siege raged, Aurion found himself face to face with Kronar atop the fortress's highest tower. The Titan's eyes burned with ancient rage, his voice a rumble of earthquakes. "You dare challenge me, child of clouds?" Kronar bellowed. "You and your ragtag band of rebels will be crushed beneath my might." Aurion met the gaze without fear. "Your reign of terror ends today, Kronar. The skies belong to all, not to tyrants." The clash of their powers sent shockwaves through the realm. Lightning met shadow, fire met stone, and the very fabric of reality trembled. But amid the fury, Kronar revealed a cruel truth: the depths of his power were fueled by the fears and doubts of those who opposed him. He fed on discord and despair, growing stronger with every fracture in the alliance. Aurion realized then that victory would not come by force alone. To defeat Kronar, he must inspire unwavering trust and hope. Summoning every ounce of his divine presence, Aurion reached out with his mind and heart, weaving a bond that united the allies in a luminous web of courage and resolve. The shadows that once threatened to consume them began to falter, drawn back by the radiant light of unity. With a final, resounding cry, Aurion channeled the combined power of sky, sea, earth, and fire into a single, blinding storm that engulfed Kronar. When the tempest cleared, the Titan King was no more. His obsidian fortress crumbled, and the dark clouds dissipated, revealing a sky painted with the dawn of a new era. The battle was won, but Aurion knew the journey was far from over. The cosmos would need healing, and new bonds forged to ensure that tyranny never again took root. As the first rays of sunlight kissed the land, Aurion stood among his allies, their faces illuminated with hope and the promise of peace. The Sky Sovereign had risen. The victory over Kronar had shattered the darkness that long cloaked the cosmos, yet peace was but a fragile veil stretched thin over the wounds of war. Aurion, the Sky Sovereign, stood gazing over the vast expanse of the newly dawned sky, a canvas painted with hues of hope, but shadowed by the echoes of the past. Though Kronar's fortress lay in ruins and his reign of terror ended, the aftermath revealed a landscape scarred by conflict and betrayal. The alliances forged in battle now faced their greatest trial, the test of unity in a world yearning for healing. Aurion convened the Council of Realms beneath the World Oak, the ancient symbol of endurance and renewal. The leaders of earth, sea, fire, and sky gathered, their faces etched with weariness and resolve. Illyra, still recovering from her wounds, spoke with quiet wisdom. "The land suffers, Aurion. The trees weep for their fallen kin, and the rivers run dark with sorrow. We must tend to the scars, or the wounds will fester." Cyrena nodded, her voice like the distant roar of tides. "The seas too bear the weight of battle, storms rage unchecked, and the creatures of the deep are restless. Balance must be restored." Solaris raised his hands, flames flickering like gentle candles. "The Emberlands mourn as well. Fire that once forged life now threatens to consume. We must teach restraint as well as power." Aurion listened, understanding that his role extended beyond warlord. He was now a guardian of peace, a steward of balance. But even as they planned restoration, whispers of a darker threat crept through the cosmos. Far beyond the shattered remnants of Kronar's dominion, A new force stirred in the void. Nazar and Morvos, though defeated, had not vanished. Their shadows coalesced into a singular entity, Nocturus, the wraith of endless night. Born from the remnants of Kronar's hatred and the lingering fears of mortals and gods alike, Nocturus was a creature of pure darkness, seeking to consume the light and bend all to its will. On Elaria, Aurion's visions grew troubled. Dreams of swirling shadows and silent screams haunted his nights. He confided in Métis, whose calm presence offered solace amid the storm within. This new shadow is unlike Kronar, Métis warned. It feeds not on power, but on despair and forgotten hopes. To face it, you must kindle the light within all souls, gods and mortals alike. Realizing the breadth of this threat, Aurion proposed a bold plan, a great convergence, calling forth not only the gods and spirits but also mortal champions whose hearts burned with courage and hope. Messages were sent across realms and worlds, beckoning heroes from forgotten lands, mortals who had overcome darkness in their own lives, to join the cause. Among the first to answer was Lyra, a mortal woman of fierce spirit and unyielding will. Born in a village consumed by shadow, Lyra had fought despair with the light of her soul and the sword of her resolve. Her arrival on Elaria marked a turning point, the bridging of divine and mortal, the dawn of a new era where gods and humans would stand as one. As the Great Convergence began, Aurion faced internal struggles within the council. Old wounds and mistrust threatened to unravel the fragile unity. Thelos's temper flared again, and doubts surfaced among the spirits. Aurion's leadership was tested not in battle, but in diplomacy, empathy, and vision. He walked the paths of his allies and foes alike, seeking understanding and weaving bonds stronger than steel. Through these trials, the seeds of hope took root, watered by courage, compassion, and shared purpose. Yet, in the deepest shadows, Nocturus prepared its final assault. The battle for the soul of the cosmos was far from over. Aurion, Lyra, and their united forces would need every ounce of strength, wisdom, and heart to face the coming night. The island of Elaria thrummed with an energy unlike any before. A gathering of gods, spirits, and mortal heroes convened beneath the boughs of the world oak. The Great Convergence had begun, signaling a turning point in the struggle between light and shadow. Aurion, the Sky Sovereign, stood at the heart of the assembly, his gaze sweeping across the diverse faces that looked to him for guidance. Mortals with stories of resilience and hope mingled with ancient deities whose powers shaped the very fabric of existence. Among the mortals was Lyra, the fierce warrior whose sword had cleaved through despair and darkness alike. Her eyes, sharp and unwavering, met Aurion's with quiet determination. The fate of all rests upon this union, Aurion spoke, voice carrying the weight of gods and men alike. Together, we forge a future where light will never again be extinguished. Yet, shadows stirred beyond the veil. Nocturus, the wraith of endless night, fed on the fears and doubts lurking in the hearts of those assembled. It whispered in silence, sowing discord and mistrust. As days passed, fissures began to show. Old rivalries flared, some gods questioned the inclusion of mortals, others doubted Aurion's vision. Thelos, the storm god, thundered his discontent. Mortals are fragile. They will falter under pressure and bring ruin to us all. Illyra's voice cut through the tension. It is their spirit that gives us hope. We must embrace all who stand for the light. Amid the turmoil, Aurion sought counsel from Métis and Gaia, who reminded him that unity was a delicate flame one easily snuffed but capable of blazing brilliantly if tended with care. Aurion called a council meeting beneath the stars, where he shared a vision of the coming darkness and the strength found in trust. Moved by his words, the assembly recommitted to their cause, forging bonds anew. But Nocturus was patient and cunning. It struck not with brute force, but with subtle manipulations, dreams filled with doubt, shadows cloaking once steadfast allies, and illusions that twisted reality. One night, Lyra awoke to a whispering voice in her mind, feeding fears of betrayal and failure. Her sword felt heavy, her heart burdened. Seeking Aurion, she found him gazing into the horizon, lightning dancing at his fingertips. "I fear this darkness," she confessed. "Not just the shadow without, but the shadow within us." Aurion placed a hand on her shoulder. "Fear is natural, but we must not let it control us. Our strength lies in standing together, in the light we kindle within." Together, they embarked on a journey to the sacred springs, a place said to purify soul and spirit, seeking renewal and clarity. Their path was fraught with trials, phantoms from their pasts, temptations to despair, and confrontations with manifestations of Nocturus's power. Each challenge forged their resolve, binding them closer. Meanwhile, the Alliance prepared for the inevitable clash. Aurion's powers grew, tempered by wisdom and compassion. Mortals trained alongside gods, their swords and spirits honed for the battles ahead. The skies over Elaria darkened once more, heralding the approach of the final storm. Aurion stood atop the world oak, lightning and fire entwined in his grasp, his voice rising in a rallying cry. "The night may be long, but dawn is ours to claim. Together, we stand unbroken, unyielding, and united." The great convergence was ready to face the darkness. The fate of the cosmos hung in balance. The calm before the storm had shattered. Nocturus, the wraith of endless night, unleashed its fury upon the realms, weaving tendrils of darkness that choked the skies and crept into the hearts of gods and mortals alike. The very air seemed to thicken with despair, a suffocating veil threatening to snuff out the fragile light of hope. Elaria, once a sanctuary of unity, now echoed with cries of anguish and defiance. The Great Alliance, tested by internal strife and relentless assaults, braced for the battle that would decide the fate of all existence. Aurion stood at the forefront, his eyes blazing with storm and flame, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. But even the Sky Sovereign felt the weight of the looming conflict pressing upon his soul. The battlefield was no longer just land or sky, but the very essence of spirit and will. Nocturus struck at the core of belief, twisting memories, casting illusions, and turning friends into foes with whispers of doubt. In the midst of chaos, Lyra found herself isolated, trapped in a labyrinth of shadowy visions that preyed upon her deepest fears: the loss of her village, the faces of those she couldn't save, and the haunting question of her own worth. But in the darkest moment, a flicker of light stirred within her heart, the memory of Aurion's unwavering faith, the bond forged in trials, and the promise of a dawn yet to come. With a cry that pierced the silence, Lyra shattered the illusions, breaking free to rejoin the battle. Elsewhere, the lows raged against the shadowy phantoms, his storms clashing with tendrils of darkness in a violent dance that shook the heavens. His fury was unmatched, but so was the cost. Each strike drained his strength, each moment tested his resolve. Illyra and Cyrena worked tirelessly to heal the wounded, their powers weaving restoration and protection amid the devastation. Aurion, sensing the pivotal moment, gathered the council amidst the chaos. "This battle is not won by might alone," he declared. "It is our hearts, our trust, and our unity that will break the shadows." Calling upon the combined forces, Aurion summoned a tempest unlike any seen, lightning that sang with the fire of Solaris, winds that carried the whispers of Gaia's forests, and waves that roared with Cyrena's might. The storm surged forward, meeting Nocturus in a clash of light and shadow that tore through the fabric of reality. As the battle raged, Aurion reached deep within, calling forth a power born not of anger or fear, but of hope and love, the true essence of leadership. With a blinding burst of light, the Wraith's form began to unravel, its darkness dissolving into nothingness. The battlefield fell silent. Aurion's allies gathered around him, battered but unbroken. The victory was hard-won, and the wounds ran deep, but the shadow had been vanquished for now. Yet Aurion knew the cost was not just in lives or power, but in the unending vigilance required to protect the fragile light of peace. As dawn painted the sky anew, Aurion and his companions vowed to rebuild, to strengthen bonds, and to prepare for whatever darkness might yet arise. The story of the Sky Sovereign was far from over. The light of dawn spilled over the ravaged lands, washing away the darkness of the battle but revealing scars that ran deeper than any wound of flesh. The realms Aurion and his allies fought to protect were battered, and their people weary. Yet within this devastation, seeds of renewal took root. Aurion stood atop the ruins of Kronar's fortress, now a symbol not of tyranny but of hope reborn. Beside him, the council gathered, weary but unyielding. Illyra's emerald eyes held a new fire, Cyrena's voice sang a soothing lament, and Solaris's flames burned steady and warm. "This is but the beginning," Aurion said, his voice firm and resolute. "We have won a battle, but the war for balance and harmony is ongoing. The realms must be healed, and we must prepare for the challenges still lurking in shadow." The Great Convergence shifted focus from war to restoration. Mortals and gods worked side by side, rebuilding forests, cleansing seas, and rekindling fires that had been nearly extinguished. Lyra, the mortal warrior, emerged as a beacon of hope among the people, her courage inspiring tales across the realms. Yet she remained vigilant, aware that peace was fragile. But the cosmos, ever restless, stirred with unease. In the quiet void beyond the known worlds, a pulse of darkness trembled, faint but growing. Nocturus's defeat had been devastating, but its essence, fragmented and scattered, seeped into forgotten corners, seeking new hosts. Among these was Ilthar, a god once loyal to Kronar, now consumed by bitterness and desire for revenge. Shunned and isolated, Ilthar nurtured the shadows within his heart, slowly rising as the harbinger of the next great threat. Unbeknownst to Aurion and his allies, Ilthar's schemes wove insidiously, sowing distrust and unrest. Whispers of rebellion against the Sky Sovereign began to surface, fueled by fear and ancient rivalries. Within the council, old tensions flared. The Lows, still wrestling with his tempestuous nature, challenged Aurion's decisions. Some spirits questioned the inclusion of mortals like Lyra, doubting their place among gods. Aurion, burdened yet undeterred, sought wisdom from Gaia, who reminded him, true strength lies in embracing all facets of existence, light and shadow, mortal and divine. Guided by Gaia's counsel, Aurion embarked on a journey of enlightenment, traveling through realms to understand the delicate balance of life and the hidden threads connecting all beings. Alongside Lyra, he faced trials that tested not just their powers but their faith in each other and the future they sought to build. Meanwhile, Ilthar's influence grew, and with it, the shadows lengthened. The story of the Sky Sovereign was entering a new, darker chapter, one where unity would be challenged, and the true meaning of leadership would be revealed. The realms, though bathed in the light of victory, trembled beneath the weight of unseen fractures. The great convergence that had united gods, spirits, and mortals now faced its gravest trial: the erosion of trust, the rekindling of old fears, and the insidious rise of Ilthar's shadow. Aurion, once the unshakable beacon of unity, found himself wrestling with doubt seeded by whispers of betrayal and rebellion. The bonds forged in the heat of battle began to unravel, stretched thin by suspicion and ambition. The Lows, storm god, and tempest incarnate, challenged Aurion's authority openly. Your mercy and inclusiveness invite weakness, he thundered in a council heated with tension. A true leader must wield power without hesitation, or risk losing everything. Illyra, ever the voice of reason, countered with calm conviction. Strength is not mere force, the Lows. It is the courage to embrace diversity, to build bridges rather than walls. Lyra, representing the mortals, felt the sting of exclusion and doubt. Her voice, once strong and unwavering, faltered under the weight of unseen prejudice. Yet, she refused to yield, knowing the future depended on her resolve. Amidst the turmoil, Aurion sought solitude beneath the ancient boughs of the world oak. There, Gaia's gentle presence offered guidance. The darkest trials test the heart, Aurion, she whispered. Leadership is not the absence of doubt, but the triumph over it. Inspired, Aurion embarked on a pilgrimage through the realms, accompanied by Lyra and Métis, seeking to heal the wounds fracturing their alliance. They ventured into forgotten temples, spoke with ancient spirits, and faced challenges designed to illuminate the shadows within themselves. In the depths of the crystal caverns, Aurion confronted the mirror of truth, a mystical artifact reflecting the innermost fears and desires. Gazing into its depths, he faced visions of failure, loss, and the crushing loneliness of leadership. Yet, through pain and reflection, he emerged stronger, more resolute. Meanwhile, Ilthar's influence spread like a creeping fog. Whispered lies turned allies against one another, shadows danced at the edges of dreams, feeding doubt and despair. In a bold move, Ilthar summoned a conclave of disillusioned gods and spirits, offering power in exchange for loyalty. The seeds of rebellion were sown deep. Back in Elaria, the council convened amid growing unrest. Aurion addressed his fractured allies with unwavering resolve. Our strength lies not in unchallenged rule but in the willingness to face our flaws and grow. The shadows thrive on division, we must be the light that binds. The words stirred hope and hesitation alike. As tensions reached a boiling point, a sudden attack shattered the fragile peace. Ilthar unleashed an army of shadow beasts upon the realms, forcing former rivals to fight side by side once more. The battle was brutal and unforgiving. Aurion and his allies, battered but unbroken, stood firm against the tide of darkness. Through courage, sacrifice, and newfound understanding, the alliance endured, but the cost was great. In the aftermath, Aurion looked to the horizon, knowing that the path to lasting peace was long and fraught with trials yet to come. The Sky Sovereign's journey had entered a new, profound chapter, one where the true power of unity would be tested in the fires of shadow and light. The air was thick with anticipation as the final confrontation loomed on the horizon. The realms, scarred by war and tempered by unity, stood at the cusp of destiny. Aurion, the Sky Sovereign, felt the weight of countless hopes and fears resting upon his shoulders, the culmination of a journey forged in storm and flame, trust, and sacrifice. The Great Convergence had weathered its trials. Gods and mortals, once divided by power and pride, now stood united beneath a banner woven from the threads of courage and compassion. Yet, the darkness lingered, embodied in Ilthar, the fallen god whose bitterness had twisted him into a harbinger of oblivion. The final battlefield was set upon the celestial plane, a realm where stars shimmered like frozen flames and the fabric of time and space wavered with anticipation. Here, the fate of existence would be decided. Aurion faced Ilthar beneath the vast expanse of the eternal sky, their powers a tempest of light and shadow. Thunder rolled as lightning met darkness, the clash echoing through the void. Ilthar's voice was a venomous whisper, "You cannot save a cosmos built on lies and weakness, Aurion. Embrace the shadows, or be consumed by them." Aurion's eyes blazed with unwavering resolve. "Light and shadow exist in balance, but I choose to be the dawn that breaks the endless night." Their battle raged beyond mortal comprehension, a dance of cosmic forces shaping the future itself. Aurion called upon the unity of all realms, the earth's steadfast roots, the sea's endless depths, the fire's fierce passion, and the sky's boundless freedom. As their powers intertwined, Aurion and Ilthar mirrored the eternal struggle between hope and despair, creation and destruction. At the climax, Aurion summoned the combined light of the Great Convergence, a radiant beacon piercing the heart of shadow. Ilthar faltered, the darkness retreating like a tide driven back by the sun's first rays. In that moment, Aurion extended a hand, not in conquest, but in redemption. Even in shadow, there is light. Let us rebuild, together. Ilthar, weary and broken, hesitated before the offer, the choice between eternal darkness or the chance for renewal. With a tremor, the shadows dissolved, replaced by a fragile dawn. The realms rejoiced as the eternal sky shimmered with newfound brilliance. The wounds of war began to heal, nurtured by unity and hope. Aurion's reign as Sky Sovereign was not one of dominion, but of stewardship, a guardian of balance and harmony. Mortals and gods alike celebrated a new era, where light and shadow danced in eternal balance, each honoring the other's place. Lyra stood beside Aurion, her mortal heart forever entwined with the divine legacy. Together, they symbolized the bridge between worlds, a testament to courage, unity, and the enduring power of hope. As stars twinkled in the velvet night, Aurion looked to the future with a calm smile. The journey had been long, fraught with peril and sacrifice, but the dawn had finally arrived. Under the eternal sky, all were free. Title: Aurion, the Sky Sovereign, a tale of light, shadow, and eternal unity. Description: Embark on an epic journey through realms of gods, mortals, and cosmic forces in Aurion, the Sky Sovereign. Born under the shadow of tyranny, Aurion rises as the destined leader to challenge the fearsome Titan Kronar and unite a fractured universe. From secret training on the mystical Isle of Elaria to forging alliances with elemental gods and mortal heroes, witness battles of storm and flame, the delicate balance of trust, and the enduring power of hope. But as darkness takes new forms and old wounds resurface, Aurion must confront not only external foes but the shadows within. Will unity prevail against despair, and can the Sky Sovereign usher in a dawn that lasts forever? Dive into this sweeping fantasy saga of courage, sacrifice, and the eternal dance between light and shadow.